Billionaire Daniel Monroe had visited the small New England cemetery countless times since the death of his only son, Ethan. The towering oaks around the graves whispered in the autumn wind, their golden leaves swirling like memories he could never forget. Daniel, dressed in a tailored black suit, stood before Ethan's headstone, his hand resting lightly on the cold marble. Grief had aged him more than any business deal ever could. The loss of his boy felt like a permanent shadow across his life. Every attempt to fill the emptiness, luxury yachts, sprawling estates, powerful business deals, had failed. Nothing could replace Ethan. This particular morning, the air was crisp and still, as if the world itself held its breath for him. Daniel closed his eyes, whispering a soft, "I miss you, son," feeling the ache in his chest twist with every heartbeat. And then, amidst the rustling of leaves, he noticed something unusual. Two small figures knelt before the grave, their heads bowed, hands clasped together in silent prayer. Daniel froze. Who would dare enter this sacred space without permission? He took a few cautious steps forward, his expensive leather shoes crunching on the gravel. As he got closer, he could see that they were twin girls, no older than 10, wearing simple dresses that fluttered in the wind. Their hair, dark and neatly tied back, glistened under the early morning sun. The girls didn't seem afraid or startled by his approach. Instead, they continued to pray softly, their voices barely above a whisper, almost blending with the wind. Daniel's throat tightened. There was something hauntingly familiar in their expressions, something that made the air feel electric around him. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, though it trembled slightly. The twins finally looked up. Their wide, tear-filled eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment, Daniel felt as if time had stopped. "We're Ethan's friends," one of them whispered, her voice fragile and trembling. "We never met him, but we've always prayed for him." Daniel's knees buckled slightly, and he gripped the headstone for support. Friends. How could strangers, especially children, feel this connection to Ethan? He stepped closer, the autumn wind tugging at his coat, carrying the scent of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. The other girl reached into her small bag and pulled out a worn, folded piece of paper, handing it to him with hands that shook slightly. Daniel hesitated, then unfolded the letter. His eyes scanned the childish handwriting, each word stabbing his heart. It described Ethan's secret wish to protect two little girls he had never met, tucked safely away to keep them from harm. Daniel's vision blurred as the realization sank in. The girls before him, the twins, were Ethan's daughters. His son had kept them hidden, protecting them even in death. The thought was overwhelming. He had spent years thinking his son had no one left in the world, only to discover these girls were alive, right here, kneeling before him. Daniel's legs gave way, and he collapsed to the ground, the letter still clutched in his trembling hands, his mind spinning from the magnitude of what he had just uncovered. For the first time in years, hope and grief collided in his heart, and he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Daniel Monroe lay on the cold gravel, the worn letter clutched to his chest as the autumn wind tugged at his coat. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what he had just learned. Ethan's secret, his son had left behind twin daughters, hidden away for their safety. The thought hit him like a thunderclap. Years of grief, regret, and loneliness suddenly collided with a wave of awe and disbelief. He looked up at the two girls kneeling before him, their small faces pale and serious, their hands still folded in prayer. They were real. His son's wish had not been in vain. "Girls, you're Ethan's daughters?" Daniel asked, his voice cracking, almost unrecognizable even to himself. He tried to rise, but his knees trembled under the weight of this revelation. One of the girls nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. We've always prayed for him," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "He said he loved us, even though he couldn't be with us." Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. Memories of Ethan flashed before him, the boy's laughter, his boundless curiosity, and the brief moments of joy they had shared. And now, here were the girls, alive, safe, and kneeling where Ethan had wished them to be remembered. He reached out, his hands shaking, and pulled the twins into a trembling embrace. Their small bodies clung to him, warmth pressing against his chest, a tangible connection to the son he had lost. He finally took a deep breath, letting the autumn air fill his lungs. "Your father, he always wanted to protect you," Daniel said, his voice raw with emotion. He never told anyone, even me. I didn't know you existed." The girls whispered assurances, telling him they had been raised in a small town hundreds of miles away, hidden by distant relatives, always under the shadow of their father's unseen protection. Ethan had feared the world might harm them, but even in death, he had found a way to guide them. The letter in Daniel's hand detailed Ethan's last wish, that the girls be kept safe until the day he could be remembered fully, until the world knew they existed. Daniel's mind swirled with emotions, grief, wonder, relief, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He realized that Ethan's legacy was far greater than any business empire, far deeper than wealth or power. It was these girls, innocent, pure, and full of life. Daniel slowly stood, supporting the twins by their small hands. He promised them that he would honor Ethan's memory by becoming the guardian he never had the chance to be. Together, they left the cemetery, the golden leaves crunching underfoot, the sun breaking through clouds as if blessing this long-awaited reunion. Daniel knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, hope burned in his heart. His son had not just left him grief, he had left him a purpose. And Daniel would spend the rest of his life ensuring that Ethan's daughters knew love, safety, and the father they never got to meet. If you want, I can also create a set of 5 vivid image prompts based on this story, ready for realistic illustrations or AI-generated images showing each major scene in human style. This will make the story visually powerful for readers. Do you want me to do that? The drive back to Daniel Monroe's mansion felt surreal. The autumn air had cooled, and the trees lining the winding New England roads blurred past in shades of amber and crimson. Daniel kept a firm, protective hand on the twins' small shoulders, stealing glances at their solemn faces. Despite their quiet demeanor, there was an unmistakable spark in their eyes, a reflection of the son he had lost and the secret he had kept even in death. Their silence was heavy but comforting, a bridge connecting the past to the present. When they arrived, the estate loomed like a palace from a fairy tale, its stone walls and towering windows gleaming in the late morning light. But the grandeur meant nothing to Daniel at that moment. All that mattered was the fragile lives before him, the daughters of his only son. He led them through the grand halls, their footsteps echoing softly against the marble floors, and finally into a cozy sitting room. Plush chairs and warm sunlight streaming through. The windows created a stark contrast to the chilling realization that had gripped him hours earlier. "Girls, I need to know everything," Daniel said, his voice firm yet gentle. He seated them on the sofa, keeping them close. The twins exchanged nervous glances before one of them began. Their story unfolded slowly. The careful planning by their father to protect them, the distant relatives who had shielded them from the world, the quiet longing to know the father they had never met. "We've prayed for him every day," the older twin admitted, her voice breaking. "Even when we didn't understand, we knew he was watching over us." Daniel felt tears prick at his eyes. Ethan had been a boy full of dreams, yet he had grown into a young man capable of extraordinary foresight, protecting his children even from beyond the grave. Daniel reached for the letter again, rereading the words that had set this reunion into motion. Each line reflected Ethan's love, his fear for the girls, and his unwavering hope that they would one day be safe. Suddenly, the twins' small hands gripped his tightly. Will you help us?" one asked, her voice timid but filled with hope. Daniel swallowed hard, emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "I promise," he said, his voice steady, "I will protect you. I will be the father you never got to meet." Ethan would have wanted this. The girls' eyes glistened with tears, and they leaned into him, seeking comfort and trust. In that moment, the mansion's vast halls no longer felt empty. Life had returned, fragile yet beautiful, carrying the weight of love, loss, and hope intertwined. Daniel realized that this day marked not only a reunion but the beginning of a journey, one that would require patience, understanding, and a heart open to healing. As the sun set behind the estate, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns, Daniel felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. His son's legacy was no longer confined to memories and grief, it lived on in these 2 small, resilient girls. And for the first time since Ethan's death, Daniel felt a spark of purpose. He would honor his son, embrace the daughters he had never known, and finally create the family Ethan had always dreamed they could be. If you want, I can continue with part 4 in 500 words, where Daniel starts integrating the twins into his life, facing challenges, and discovering more shocking truths about Ethan's secret plans. This part can be the emotional climax of the story. Do you want me to do that next?